The symbiotic relationship between man and his environment for harmonious coexistence is not a new thing. Hence, the essential contribution of national meteorological and hydrological services to the safety and well-being of societies, reflecting on topical weather, climate or water-related issues as it affects humanity. Climate change is a real and undeniable threat to entire civilization. The effect is already visible and will be catastrophic unless humanity acts now. Stakeholders believe closing the early warning gap together is the only way for humanity, as advancement in science and technology provides early warning to mitigate some of the impact of climate change and weather patterns on the environment. These and more will be a focus on Nigeria today. Thanks for joining us. I am Vicaria Clinton. With me in the studio is Dr. Yusuf Abdullahi Rigasa. He's an environmentalist and also former GM. It's a pleasure to have you in Nigeria today.
Thank you for having me.
And joining us via Zoom from the USA is Femi Kinri. He's an environmentalist. Glad to have you with us, Femi.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I'll start with you, Doc. Now, what is the contribution of meteorological service to safety and well-being of the society?
Well, you see, the import of this, if you want to know the import of this, you need to look at the history of World Meteorological organization. And this organization was established in 1950. And today, or yesterday, which was the actual World Meteorological Day, is the 23rd of March. So it marks 75 years of global effort to mitigate the potentials, possible environmental disasters, in the built and natural environment. So over time, because if you look at WMO, it is a specialized agency of United Nations. And you know that United Nations is an umbrella of virtually all the countries of the world. So in WMO, you have about 193 countries. All of them agreeing that in order to save the planet and humanity, they need to come together. They need to work together and cooperate, especially in the areas of atmospheric science, that is weather forecasting, the area of management of water, hydrological cycle, as well as the management of geophysical sciences. So these countries come together to cooperate and share technical competence as well as funding in order to save planet in these different areas of competence. Over time, you realize countries such as ours, we've been able to create institutions such as NIMED, we've been able to create NESA, although they are based in different ministries, they have been able to work together, and they form the basis, that foundational early warning systems that are supposed to protect the citizens of this country and our environmental assets against potential environmental disasters. And so far, so good. I think that these institutions are doing very well.
Okay, now, Femi, having heard that a kind of the history of meteorological service or services, now there are research on climate impact on the society. Are we, as a country, doing enough to protect the environment?
Well, I wouldn't say we are doing enough, but then the contribution of our nation is actually on the increase as regards what will actually give us the results. Our country is not just sitting down without having to improve on whatsoever we are doing, but then there's still a lot to be done.
Okay, now, Doc, just like Femi said, we are not really doing enough. But then, is Nigeria properly utilizing seasonal predictions to the advantage of its people and the environment itself?
Yes, when you look at our reality year in, year out, what the records or maybe the story we are getting from the state, local government, and a lot of citizens is that flood is affecting our people every year, at least for the past maybe 20 years. Yes, that shows that one, that there is an awareness of these potential environmental consequences of flood and other climate-induced environmental disasters. The awareness is on the increase, but whether the institutions, of governance are doing enough, I think that is actually questionable. At the federal level, you can see NIMET and NEHISA are doing very well. But when you go to states, when you go to our communities, you realize that our citizens are not actually doing enough, to ensure that they tap the potentials of these early warning systems in mitigating flooding and other climate-induced environmental disasters.
Now, Femi, I know you've mentioned that we are not really doing enough, or at least we are doing something, just like Doc has mentioned in the federal level. Now, even though it's still questionable when you talk about the institutions and, probably in the state level. Now, talking about climate change, because you really cannot take that away from this conversation. Now, when you talk about, meteorological predictions and the rest of them. Now, how devastating is the impact of climate change?
Well, I will, on the scale of 1 to 10, I would say that I will put it that it's terrible, terribly devastating. Maybe putting it at about 8. There is an adage in Yoruba land that says that a war that is foretold does not kill a crippled man. And then, so they now added to it that it is the crippled man that is wise, that a war that is foretold will not kill. Now, weather forecast is actually to tell us that these are the challenges we are to be expecting, as it were. But then, if they say there's going to be flooding, for instance, or there's going to be, rain, it's going to be raining in torrents, and at the end of the day, it rains in torrents, and we still have a whole lot of our properties being flooded away. It means that we have not shown that we are wise, as it were. So when you see communities that are actually being ravaged by the consequences of floods, then you will know that we didn't actually get ourselves prepared, because we have an idea that it's going to actually rain every year, whether it's going to be heavy or it's going to be light. And more often than not, the weather predictions will tell us how heavy the rain would be. And then we will still find ourselves in a situation whereby places are flooded. Because water will certainly find its course at any point in time. And so when we have not made sufficient provision for where the water will actually pass, we have not cleared the drainages. We do not do proper waste management to ensure that our waste don't end up in the drainages. And at the end of the day, we have everywhere flooded and houses washed away, farmlands washed away, and whatever. So it's actually very devastating. It's very devastating. And
okay, now
to act ahead of time.
Okay, thank you, Femi. I also want to get a perspective on the issue of climate change. We know since the talk about climate change, quite a lot has been happening, and we've seen some of the impact. So how have we fared in combating these the effects of climate change?
You see, where the meteorological science is actually key in is the aspect of providing an early warning system. And as I said earlier, these two organizations, specifically NIMET and NEHISA, they've been doing well. Every year they release the seasonal rainfall predictions. All the vulnerable areas that are likely to be impacted by flood have been identified at the local government level, some even at the ward level. So there is no excuse for anybody to say that he has not been forewarned. If you refuse to access this information, or maybe in the information dissemination chain, there are certain faults, the fault has to be internal. It's not the fault of these two organizations. You don't expect NIMET to go to the local government trying to disseminate, what their focus. It is the responsibility of those that are manning the institution of environmental governance to ensure that they access this information. If they need to translate it, they translate it, or they manipulate it in a way that communities and people can actually tap into it and mitigate the impact of these climate change-induced environmental disasters. To that extent, I believe that we are on course. Just like the doctor has said, maybe we are not doing enough, but at least at national level we are doing something. Communities are still vulnerable, not because the information is not there, but possibly because of negligence of those manning the institutions of environmental governance.
Okay. Now, Doc, the reason why I asked this question is the fact that even the year in, year out, we have these predictions. The problems, when they still come, is like it took us unawares. So I want you to, really talk to us about this issue. How are we doing, or what can be done more to ensure that, safety is guaranteed?
For me, I don't look at it as if they are taking people unawares. What I believe is that the people...
No, I mean the predictions about rains and all of that.
He has already stated it.
When the rain comes, it's like we are taking unawares.
No. I think in most cases, what we suffer from is, institutional negligence. Somebody has been saddled with the responsibility of accessing this information and passing this information, refining this information and passing it on to political leadership so that what is required for preparedness can be put in place against such disasters. But somehow somebody is negligent, either in the appointment of people that should shoulder that environmental responsibility, or maybe in executing the contingency plan in case things like that happen. So to me, I see it as an act of negligence, not that of, people are not aware. NISA is known everywhere, and there is no ministry that is not aware of the existence of NISA as well as NIMET. And their publications are fairly regular. Every year they disseminate this information. But the impact of this information, as you mentioned, on our society has not actually reduced significantly. Sadly, that is the way it is.
That's the reality. Now back to you, Femi. You talked so much about we're not doing enough, even though something is being done. But now, in your own opinion, what is the way out of the climate challenges confronting Nigeria?
I would say that in ensuring that the effect of the information that are doled out there is actually being felt, and of course for us to be able to have sufficient preventive measures. Now, when the publications are made, for instance, at the beginning of the year, about areas that will be affected, I think the relevant agency can as well go for that to ensure that, because the whole essence is to ensure that our people are safe. So it will not be out of place if we now specifically write to those, to the locations that we know would be affected, stating that, just in case you ignore this, all of this publicity and the publications about areas that will be affected. We have about 20, 30, 40, 100 local governments that will actually be affected, by flood, for instance, this year. As a result of the predictions, we could as well go ahead to write to them. I think the National Orientation Agency also have a lot to do to actually ensure that people are carried along in some of these things. You see, our habits towards the environment is still really bad. I happen to be on a particular program recently, and I was talking about how the environmental management industry is not taken seriously. And I said, for instance, if you are talking about the listing, the industries that are available in Nigeria, you see banking industry, real estate, environmental management listed. So that shows how much we need to do to actually be able to take the industries, seriously. So our level of orientation, creating the sufficient awareness of the people, we need to step it up to actually ensure that all of these things don't actually get us grounded. Again, people understanding that we don't need to manage our environment very well because the law says, but then because we have to preserve ourselves, because we have to protect ourselves, it's also very important. It's an important thing we need to actually look at. So I would still say that there is nothing that we can do that will be too much to ensure that the effect of this climate change and the consequences of our anthropogenic activities don't actually get us grounded.
Thank you very much. We'll take a breather here. The conversation will continue after this break. Don't go away.
The implementation of the ruling is also dependent on another aspect or another arm of government.
Nowhere in the world will allow under digital economy for banks not to be dispensing domestic currency in that economy.
What will make this one different?
We want to know what they do as occupation. All of these are attributes that are questions have been designed to investigate.
In a few days to come, you see that we are all around their own crannies and everywhere in Nigeria, telling people to cooperate.
Welcome to Nigeria Today. Welcome back. This is in Nigeria Today, and we are looking at meteorological safety and well-being of humanity. And of course, I have two environmentalists, one via Zoom and one here in the studio. Now, Doc, of course, Femi there has said quite a lot of, talking about what the challenges and how we should confront it as a nation, talking about agencies that should rise up, to their responsibilities. Now, can you, talk to us about the relationship? Because he mentioned the human aspect. Talk to us about the relationship that exists between humans and, of course, the environment.
Yeah, environment is the host of everybody. So if there is something faulty or something that is not nice about the environment, it will certainly impact human beings as well as non-human, living things. So it is our responsibility as the most intelligent beings now to ensure that the quality of environment, is adequate not only for human beings but for other non-human living things that cohabit the environment with us. So in that regard, humanity, as I mentioned earlier, has sat together. Nations have realized hundreds of years, before us, that the responsibility for maintaining the quality of our environment rests upon human beings. They are not calling upon any other animals. In fact, the survival of other animals depend on how we human beings manage the environment. And the very survival of humanity is, dependent on how us human beings as individuals, as communities, and as nations work together to ensure that, the quality of environment is maintained, at all times. That is the relationship between humanity and the environment. For what I would like to talk about probably at this particular stage is, environmental responsibilities of individuals. Environmental responsibility of individuals.
It's good you're talking about it right now because quite a lot of time people will just feel, okay, this thing should be done by government. No. It is not our responsibility. No. And, we keep having problems here. Almost every time there's rain and all of that.
So environmental responsibilities is a third system whereby right from the citizens up to United Nations level. You see, this WMO, as I mentioned earlier, is a specialized agency of United Nations. That is the highest level, of human collaboration. But this has to come down to the level of individuals, that you in your house, you in your room, what are your environmental responsibilities? It is your duty to know your environmental responsibilities and the impact, of, you not discharging those responsibilities, not only on yourself, but on the neighborhood where you live. We owe it to each other, to fulfill our, environmental obligations. In some countries, they call them civic responsibility. But maybe we are short when it comes to enforcement and environmental education at different level, in this country. When you look at it, you realize that the curricula at different levels, is weak in terms of environmental education. Maybe that is why we don't take our environmental responsibilities seriously. But that is the very foundation of environmental performance and environmental management. Without that, there will be no hope for humanity.
Maybe, Doc, you should highlight some of this environmental responsibility because, oftentimes when you see your fellow citizen maybe trashing things indiscriminately without recourse to just, will I say anyhow? If you talk to the person, they'll say, does it concern you? Is it your business?
Yes. The first one in those days, we have these sanitarians that enter homes and ensure that your toilet is good. You can't go out and be defecating openly. Yes, although you as an individual, you may not think that is a bad thing, but if you happen to harbor one or two diseases, just imagine if you defecate in a waterway, and we have other people and animals, that subsist on that water. So something that, just like cholera now, if a single person comes down with a cholera in 24 hours, it can impact 10 million people. So you can imagine, if you don't take your environmental responsibility, it's not only you. You are not only putting yourself at risk, you are putting the whole community and the whole country, at risk. That is why whenever there is a disease, government take, public health seriously, and they try to condone, and contain people within certain environment. So it is very important at individual level, cleaning yourself, that is hygiene, is your responsibility. When you defecate, you wash your hand, you ensure that you flush your toilet, and ensure that the toilet is not a shithole, is not a latrine, is a water closet. And whenever there is something wrong with that sheet system, we call it sheet flow system, whenever there is something wrong with your own side of it, you take care of it. And every city, just like Abuja, they have the responsibility of designing their sheet flow and managing it, just like solid waste, just like liquid waste. So the responsibilities are at different levels: individual, community, local government, state, federal government, and at the level of United Nations. I think there may be no space enough for me to outline all of this, but we should know that the responsibilities are there. And how do you disseminate these responsibilities? It has to be through our educational system. We cannot be teaching people hygiene at this stage. It's something that people need to learn at kindergarten or nursery, at nursery school. Certain responsibilities are learned at primary school, certain responsibilities at secondary school, certain responsibilities at the university level, certain responsibilities when you become mature adult and you have your own household. That is when you discharge such responsibilities. In some communities where you have problems, especially with drainage systems that are clogged, it is the responsibility of the community, not individuals, to ensure that all the drainage systems are cleared before the rains start. And then where you need to create dams and other bigger structures, states now come in and the federal government can come in, and where the nation as a whole cannot actually do it, they can go to IMF, they can go to United Nations and try to tap into global competence.
Thank you very much, Doc. Now, Femi, just for us to wrap it up, earlier you mentioned what agencies should do, but now, Doc, of course, I've mentioned what humans, what citizens should do to ensure, all our environment is safe. So how do we stop human activities that affect the environment?
The first thing is social awareness. Like Doctor has talked about the curriculum at the various schools, then let's be deliberate about social awareness. Let's also be deliberate about leading by examples, because there are certain things that we have considered as the norm. For instance, people just thinking that it is the duty of the government to clear their waste, to manage their waste for free. And the reality is that waste management go a very long way, in affecting the issue of climate change, as it were. About 80% to 90% of the cause is about the way we manage our waste. So the social awareness should actually be there. The issue of having to wait for somebody to come with horsewhip to tell us what to do shouldn't be the thing, but then we should be conscious, as people, to also do what is right. Again, is the fact that yes, even though people should know what is right, there should be enforcement. We have a whole lot of laws here and there that actually tells us what should not be, what A should not do, what B should not do. But then those who have been doing it, what have been the consequences?
Thank you very much, Femi. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, this is where we'll wrap up today's episode of Nigeria Today. A very big thank you to Dr. Yusuf Abdullahi Rigasa. He's an environmentalist and former GM, KEPA. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you very much.
And also Femi Kinri, that joined us via Zoom from the US. He's also an environmentalist. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your thought with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for being part of the program. I'm your carrier, Clinton. Goodbye.